So, if you've been anywhere online recently, you've probably seen the waves from a stream where Hasan Piker went in on Ethan Klein. It's the kind of internet drama that just takes over your feed for a few days.
And the first question on everyone's mind is pretty simple. Who's right? Who's wrong here? It's just the natural way we frame these kinds of conflicts. But for this explainer, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to park that who is right question for a minute. Instead, we're diving into what our source material analyzes, which is the structure of the argument itself. So we're not here to judge the people, we're putting the logic on the operating table. And this quote from that analysis really nails the main takeaway. The finding is that while the stream delivers this really powerful, confident verdict, it doesn't always show the work that's needed to get there. So let's break down what that actually means.
All right, so the first big thing the analysis points to is the heavy use of labels instead of actual fleshed out arguments. This is a super common rhetorical technique, so let's take a closer look at how it works. The source pulls out a bunch of these really loaded labels that were used during the stream. I mean, words like psychopaths and villain. These are incredibly powerful. They do a lot of work in just a few syllables. And the whole point, according to the analysis, is that these words act like emotional signals. They're designed to make you feel a certain way about someone, to basically tell you, hey, this person is bad, without having to lay out the evidence for why they're bad.
And this table really lays it all out, right? On one side, you have labels. They're all about emotional signals, asserting a conclusion and targeting your feelings. But on the other side, you've got arguments. They require demonstrated proof. They show the work, and they target your sense of reason.
So what does showing the work actually involve? Well, the source suggests a strong case needs these basics. What specifically was said or done? When did it happen? Who was it directed at? And maybe most importantly, why does this specific action cross a moral or ethical line? The critique here is that this basic framework was mostly missing. And that idea, it leads us right into the second major point from the analysis. This is all about the gap between how big the accusations are and how much proof is actually presented to back them up. Take a phrase like this one, which the source really hones in on. This kind of statement just assumes everyone in the room is already on the same page. It kind of suggests that the details are so obvious, they don't even need to be said out loud. And this gets at a really core concept in any debate, the burden of proof. It's a pretty simple idea. If you make a claim, it's on you to prove it. Saying everyone knows is a classic way to try and dodge that responsibility. And we're not talking about small claims here. These are big accusations. The analysis lists several of them. Things like smear campaigns, deplatforming attempts, building right-wing alliances. The critique isn't about whether these are true or false, it's that they were presented as settled fact without being backed up with specific on-stream examples. So what's happening here? The analysis calls this outsourcing the burden of proof. When you make a huge claim without the receipts, you're essentially asking your audience to do the heavy lifting for you, to fill in the blanks based on what they already believe. This also brings up another classic tool in the rhetorical toolbox, guilt by association. It's a well-known logical fallacy where you try to make someone look bad by linking them to a person or a group that the audience already dislikes, whether or not there's a real, meaningful connection. You see this a lot. The analysis points to how a collage showing Ethan Klein with other controversial figures was used. But look, a picture that just shows people exist in the same online space isn't actual proof that they coordinate or share an ideology. The source has a great name for this, a vibes argument. It creates the feeling of a conspiracy, the vibe of it, without actually providing any hard evidence. Okay, so this leads us to our third theme, the power of a good story. Because let's be real, a simple, clean narrative is often way more persuasive than a complicated, messy truth. The source breaks down the narrative presented in the stream into a really simple 4-act play. You've got cause and effect, a clear beginning and end, and a very clear moral journey. That kind of storytelling is just incredibly compelling to the human brain. But here's the catch, according to the analysis. That neatness, it comes at a price. Years and years of complicated history, of online drama, of shifting alliances. It all gets flattened out to make the final conclusion seem totally simple and unavoidable. It's a powerful story for sure, but that doesn't necessarily make it an accurate argument.
And this is a fantastic example of what we're talking about. The source points out this exchange. The issue raised is about the perception of a PR machine. You know, the effect that a massive audience and tons of clip channels can have. But the response is super literal. I don't have a PR firm. It completely sidesteps the real point about the effects of a huge platform, which can definitely feel like a PR machine, even if it isn't one technically.
Okay, so why should we care about any of this? I mean, it's just online drama, right? Well, it matters because it's about how we process all the information and all the arguments that are thrown at us every single day. This chart really drives the point home. For an audience that's already on your side, your existing supporters, this style of argument is super effective. It makes them feel validated, it gives them powerful words to use. But for anyone on the fence, any neutral viewer, the lack of evidence and the reliance on emotion makes the whole thing feel pretty unconvincing.
And that's really the bottom line here. There's a huge gap between an argument that feels right, that feels decisive and satisfying, and one that is actually built on a solid foundation of logic and proof. Certainty is a feeling. A sound argument is a standard. The source really wraps it up with this idea. If a case is genuinely rock solid, showing your work should be the easy part. You shouldn't need to lean on labels or just assume everyone agrees with you. Just 2 or 3 clear examples with names and dates would do way more work than an hour of passionate rhetoric. So that's the question we want to leave you with. In this world where we are just drowning in confident claims and emotional arguments, how do we get better at telling the difference between what feels true and what's actually been proven to be true? Learning to look at the structure of an argument, well, that's probably the best place to start.